Wife's secret phone with text showed she was cheating on me with my brother. I told my sil, but my family is furious and demands I stay silent to save my brother's reputation. So I, 30M, have an older half-brother, I'll call him Jerry, 35M. My dad had Jerry with his ex-wife, but he left her when Jerry was just 6 months old. My mom told me that they got divorced because they were just not compatible. However, my dad continued to play an active role in Jerry's life, and he shared custody of him with his ex-wife. 2 years after his divorce, he met my mom and they were married within a year. They had a pretty fairy tale kind of romance because my mom says that she was in a coffee shop and he was walking outside when he first laid eyes on her, and apparently, it was love at first sight for my dad, and he actually went inside the coffee shop to ask my mother out. After dating for a couple of months, he proposed, and she instantly said yes, because she knew that he was her soulmate, and they were meant to be together. So far so good, right? Unfortunately, my dad ended up cheating on my mom about a year into their marriage with one of his co-workers. He confessed it to her out of guilt, and my mother decided to forgive him and stay with him. They went for marriage counseling and fixed things. My mother was convinced that having a baby would solve all their problems, which is how I came into existence. My mother thinks this is a very romantic story, but honestly, I just think that my parents are very dysfunctional as a couple and not the perfect version of themselves that they present to the world. Keeping up appearances, and pretending to be perfect means a lot to them, that's for sure. Even when I was a child, they would put on a show of being madly in love, whenever people would come over and everyone would shower them with praise about how they had managed to keep the spark alive even after years of being married. But the truth was that, like any other married couple, they were pretty normal and didn't constantly kiss or hug each other when they were at home, and definitely not in the honeymoon phase like they pretended to be. It was just a show that they were put on to like the perfect couple, and I realized it only when I was older. And this pressure to appear perfect also extended to me, which is why I was forced to enroll in a bunch of classes so I would be good at everything. I was constantly busy as a child and barely ever got time to relax. It wasn't until high school that I started protesting and they allowed me to spend some time at home and just unwind. My dad had made sure that both Jerry and I were straight A students and excelled at everything that we participated in, academically, or otherwise. It was no big surprise that Jerry got into one of the finest medical schools in the country and I ended up in an Ivy League college for a business degree. There was a lot of pressure on us, which is probably why both of us are quite successful now, and while I do not recommend going this way for other parents, I am lucky that it worked out for me. However, my dad also believed that he had the right to control our personal lives as well. And my mother was no better because she always agreed with whatever my father said. So when Jerry turned 30, my dad told him that he was supposed to start looking for a woman he could marry and settle down with because he was getting older, and soon enough, he would be out of options. Jerry was dating his now wife, Tina, 34F, at the time that my dad sat him down and had that talk with him. They walked together and were in an on-again off-again relationship for almost 5 years, so they had known each other for quite a long time and my dad knew about it. But after that talk with my dad, Jerry decided to get serious about Tina, and within a year, he had proposed to her, and they got married 3 years ago. Last year, they even had a baby together. Jerry and I are not close, so I didn't hear about any of this from him, but I did get to know about it from my dad when he had the same conversation with me earlier this year. He told me that he had had this conversation with my brother and now, it was time to tell me the same thing so I would get serious and have a family of my own. He had actually boasted about how he had been the one to convince Jerry to get married to Tina, and he was as happy as could be with a wife and a son, and he wanted the same for me. He was clueless about how spectacularly it would blow up in his face later. My dad had even brought up his own affair from before I was born and told me that at the time, he had been really unfulfilled, but committed to my mother, and having a child is what grounded him, and he would recommend the same for me. I took whatever he said, with a pinch of salt, because I wasn't going to let my father give me relationship advice, of all things. Lucky for him, he got to believe that he had changed my life as well, because I had been planning to propose to my girlfriend anyway. Carla, 30F, and I have been together for the past 3 years and have been living together for 2 of those years. So, I had been planning to propose to her anyway, and 2 months after the conversation with my dad, I finally did it on the day of my birthday. And she accepted it and we got married 3 months ago. I thought it was all going well, but obviously, if it actually was, then I wouldn't be here. Carla and I, like I said, had only been married for 2 months, but unfortunately, I had to file for divorce about a week ago after I found out that she had been having an affair with Jerry ever since we got engaged. It was a huge shock to me, and I wouldn't even have found out if I didn't accidentally stumble upon her burner phone. I couldn't find some piece of clothing that belonged to me, and I was looking for it all over the house. She was not at home at the time, and I thought that maybe she must have kept it with her own clothes accidentally, so I decided to go through her clothes as well, and when I was going through them, I felt something in one of the pockets of a particular pair of jeans. I took it out and found another phone. It was not password protected, thankfully, and there was only one text thread on it. I noticed that the phone number looked familiar, and sure enough, it was Jerry's phone number. I was horrified, and yet, I continued to scroll up. The chat started about 3 weeks after I had proposed to her, and they were really flirting back and forth like 2 teenagers. They had confessed that they were in love with each other a few months after our engagement, and both of them were promising each other that they would stick it out no matter what. The plan was to stay with their respective partners until my nephew turned 5 and didn't need his mother as much as he would right now. And then both of them filed for divorce and came clean to me and Tina about the affair. Jerry would get shared custody of his son, and they would leave us, so they could be together. I was horrified to read all of that, and even more so when I realized that the two of them were planning to carry on this farce for 5 years. It was deranged, and I immediately started packing my stuff up so I could leave the house. I knew that Carla wouldn't be home until late that day because she was out with her friends, so I took the time and packed all my things which would fit, took as many screenshots as I could of the messages on her phone, and then drove to a hotel a little out of town. I didn't leave any message for her or whatever, just left the burner phone out on our bed, and I knew that she would know what it meant. I was sick to my stomach because even though Jerry and I had never been the best of friends, he and I had never really been on bad terms, either. From the messages that I had read, I had figured out that he had made a move on Carla literally the night of our engagement. I had proposed on the day of my birthday party, so my friends and family had been there, and Jerry had been there as well because he was still family. And apparently, he had come to her, and they had made out in the backyard of our house while I was attending to the guests and socializing with them. I had noticed that Carla had been missing for some time that night, but I didn't think much of it because I just figured that she had probably left to freshen up her makeup or something. But while reading the texts, I realized that they made several references and would keep talking about the night of our engagement and their rendezvous. It was disgusting because here I was, celebrating us while she smashed faces with my married brother, who also happens to be the father of a child. I called up my lawyer that evening and told him that I wanted to file for divorce, so he had to start preparing the paperwork required. I honestly just wanted to make sure that Carla didn't get anything out of the divorce like alimony, or even a settlement, because I was in a much higher paying position than her and she would definitely try to use that for her own gain. In fact, while reading those texts, I even realized that she was looking down on my profession while saying that she would much rather be with a doctor than with some glorified accountant. For the record, I have my own business that I started a few years ago with 2 of my business school buddies. I handle the finances and we are doing pretty well, so I don't understand why she would want to look down upon us when she herself is a corporate employee. I always knew that she was materialistic, but this is just sad. They had made a lot of fun of me behind my back in those texts and I had started to hate Jerry. So I knew that sooner or later, I would tell Tina and make sure that she knew she was married to a nasty lying cheater and left him. I was just building up the courage required to do it because I was in a very dark place. I had blocked both Carla and Jerry everywhere as soon as I found out about the other phone because I didn't want to listen to any of their BS excuses or even give them a chance to explain themselves. I was just done. So 2 days after I had left my house and had moved into the hotel, I had expected that at least one of them would have the sense to apologize so I would go easy on them. But instead, what I received was a phone call from my father on the 3rd day. He started off by telling me that he had heard about the affair since Carla had found out that I knew, as I had left the phone out on the bed, and she had contacted Jerry to talk to him about this because I wasn't answering her calls and she didn't know where to find me. And Jerry couldn't get to me either, so he talked to my dad and my father finally was able to reach out to me. He told me that he was sorry that this had happened and I thought that he was being understood, but just after he said that he felt really bad about what was happening to me, he told me that he would really appreciate it if I kept this all to myself and didn't talk about it just yet. I already knew the answer as to why he wanted that, but I still asked him and decided to record what he was about to say. He told me that he had talked to Jerry and both of them were afraid of the same thing, that I would talk to Tina and tell her about his affair. My dad told me that since I was not willing to speak to Jerry and had blocked him, he felt like it was his responsibility to tell me that neither he nor my mother wanted me to tell Tina about this. They said that unlike me, Jerry had to think about a child, and it would ruin his life if I told Tina that he had been cheating on her with Carla. Tina came from a very well-connected family and it was likely that she would use her power and influence to make sure that she had the most sway in the custody arrangement, and Jerry just couldn't bring himself to accept it. So, through my dad, all of them were requesting me to keep my mouth shut and not tell Tina the truth. They even said that they had spoken to Jerry and had made him promise that he would stop seeing Carla, and if I wanted to, I could patch things up with my wife and make it work because that's what my mother had done and their marriage had turned out to be beautiful, in spite of my dad's mistake. So my parents thought that I should go the same way and forgive Carla and Jerry for their stupid little mistake because both of them were really sorry. I thought it was a bold move from my parents and Jerry to try and convince me that it was not a good idea for me to tell Tina about the affair, especially after he had screwed me over without batting an eye. I couldn't believe that they even had the audacity to expect that I would agree to this, and instantly hung up because I was done recording and I didn't even want to entertain the conversation or dignify it with a response. I was fuming because I knew that my parents had always cared deeply about how they appeared to other people, but this was madness and there was no way that they were actually expecting me to keep my mouth shut. I wish I could say that I was surprised, but the cheating apple doesn't fall far from the cheating tree, so of course, my dad wanted me to keep quiet and not breathe a word of this to Tina so Jerry could get away with all of this. They wanted me to brush it all under the rug and go back to pretending like everything was fine, solely for the sake of keeping up the appearance that we were a perfectly normal and functional family for other people. And to suggest that I forgive Carla and Jerry and patch things up with her so everything can go back to normal and we can carry on like this never happened requires some real guts. I was furious that they had thought that saying this would be a good idea, and in the heat of the moment, I decided to text Tina out of anger and get back at Jerry for what he had done to me. I reached out to her through text and told her everything that I knew, including that Jerry had asked my dad to instruct me to keep all this a secret from her. For good measure, I also added the screenshots that I had taken of the messages that I had found on the burner phone, and then I turned my phone off. I didn't want anybody to be able to contact me because I knew that things were going to go down now and I didn't want any part of it. A couple of hours later, when I thought it was appropriate, I finally turned my phone back on, and I found that it was full of messages and missed calls from my family. Everyone was really mad at me, but I only cared about what Tina had to say about all of this. So the first text that I checked, after turning my phone back on, was hers. She hadn't said much, just said that she was thankful that I had chosen to help her out and tell her the truth and that she knew what to do now. It sounded a little ominous, but I soon found out what she meant by that from the other text messages. Everyone, and by everyone, I mean, my mom, my dad, and a couple of other family members, was clamoring about how Tina and Jerry got into a huge fight after I sent that message and that Tina had left to go live with her parents with their son in the aftermath of the fight. It has also become abundantly clear to me that divorce was very much on the table for them, and Tina might file for full custody, which was not good for Jerry because she would definitely try her best to cut his time shorter with his son, even if he does get shared custody. And I don't know why, but my family is blaming me. If they didn't want any of this to happen, they probably should have taught Jerry not to cheat, but they didn't, so this is on him. I received a lot of angry messages and have been for the past couple of days, ever since I sent Tina that text and she left him. I think it's really unfair that everyone is blaming me, but it's even more unfair to claim that, apparently, I ruined a happy family. I don't even understand where that is coming from because if they were such a happy family, then Jerry wouldn't cheat. But whatever, I know that I'm right, but I still feel kind of weird because I've heard that Jerry is really miserable now and I don't feel comfortable that he might not get full custody. With Carla and I, it's fine because we didn't have kids, but for them, it's kind of different. Ida for telling my brother's wife that he was having an affair with my wife? Update 1. Okay, so it's been close to a week since I sent that message and Tina left the house and things have become relatively quieter now. In the sense that nobody is constantly messaging me and reminding me that this is all my fault. Mostly because I have blocked everyone, I really don't need that sort of negativity in my life anymore. The only person that can still contact me is Carla since I unblocked her because the divorce proceedings are about to begin, but she is using that window to try and talk to me and explain that she wasn't thinking straight and that she is apologetic for cheating on me. I don't know what she hopes to accomplish with this, but it's not really working. I don't feel bad for her, I don't even feel bad about what is happening. I think it's great that she cheated because it just saved me from wasting my time with her. I can't imagine being married to her for a year or more and then finding out that she had been cheating on me all along. Or worse, letting her plan succeed, and then being together for 5 years before finding out that she had been having an affair. I'm trying to put a positive spin on this and trying to come to terms with the fact that she was never the right one for me. Because somebody who can agree to marry me and then go make out with my half-brother, that person can never be my soulmate. I was wrong about her and I'm glad that I was. I'm still living in the hotel, and nobody has been able to find me yet, which is something that I'm really thankful for because I don't know what I would do if they were able to track me down. I know it's only a matter of time before they do find out since there are not many hotels in this area, and they know that I'm not in any of the places in the city. I've been working from here and it's been lonely and strange, but there's not much that I can do about it. The only thing that I hope works out for me is the divorce. She has already been served but she hasn't responded to it yet and I guess she's probably just holding out hope that I might change my mind because of her consistent begging. It's optimistic of her but it's not going to happen. Update 2. Hey, guys. So, 3 days since the last update, and sure enough, my dad and Jerry were able to trace me. They went through every hotel in the city and realized that I wasn't in any of them, so they started looking for me outside of town and found my car in the parking lot of this hotel. I had already informed the front desk staff that if somebody came looking for me, they were not supposed to tell them that I was here, and so when my dad and Jerry confronted them about it, they said that nobody by my name was here in the hotel. But my dad and Jerry had already seen my car in the parking lot, so they knew that the staff were lying and started throwing a tantrum in the lobby itself. They started screaming and hurling cuss words at other receptionists and they were forced to call me down to deal with this mess. Once I came down, security escorted both of them outside, and I went out to talk to them. I had no idea what they even wanted to discuss with me because the damage was already done, and Tina knew the truth. My dad and Jerry told me that they had come up with a solution and a way for me to make up for what I had done. They told me that I was going to be called to testify against Tina in court and all I had to do was say a few things to make Tina look like an unstable wife and mother, which is why Jerry cheated on her, and that way, Jerry would get full custody. They told me that things were not looking good for him because along with the cheating, Tina also had a lot of other complaints against him that made him look like a bad father. Like he was mostly not at home, but now she knew that he was out with Carla. And then there were other things, too, like he claimed that he loved his son, but he would never do anything for him. All the baby duties, like changing diapers and feeding him, fell to Tina, and no matter how much requested him, he would just not do it, because he would always claim to be too tired. Not only that, he would also not do any of the chores around the house, and while she had been fine with doing it all herself before the baby, she couldn't do it anymore and she wanted to just get the heck out of this marriage. And honestly, I don't understand why they thought that telling me this would work. It just convinced me that I did the right thing and that Tina was better off without him. Besides, it was entitled of them to expect any help from me at all after screwing me over. Especially when it came to something like this, they wanted me to lie about Tina, so that they would get full custody. I mean, it was ridiculous to even expect that I would agree to do it. I told them that I didn't want to do it and that they meant nothing to me, so I didn't have to make up for anything. Then I walked away without even bothering to wait for a response because I knew that they could change my mind about this. I also instructed the security person to have them thrown out because I did not want them anywhere here and I mentioned how dangerous they were. So that was enough. They got kicked off the hotel property but I still had to apologize for their behavior. The only reason they didn't get the cops called on them was because they didn't want any bad press associated with them, otherwise, they definitely would have called the police and had my dad and Jerry arrested. Update 3, so it's been 2 days since Dad and Jerry showed up at my hotel. I haven't heard back from them after that but Carla has been texting me a lot more now. We have set the date for the first meeting with a court-appointed mediator, and it's coming up in a week. She isn't even contesting the divorce, so I don't know why she keeps texting me. I haven't even opened her chat because I don't have the bandwidth to deal with all of this drama anymore. I know it'll just be the same old, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this to you. If you ask me, it's all BS because if she really was sorry then she would have tried to at least make more of an effort to contact me. She would have called me, at the very least, because she knows that I'm not much of a texting person. Or better yet, she might not have cheated at all if she knew that I didn't deserve this. Up until a few days ago, she was limiting herself to 2 texts per day but right now, she's texting me almost every hour. I just haven't found the energy or mental strength to open the chat and see what she has to say, but I think I'll do it soon because it might be something important. Update 4, alright, so this update is coming just 2 hours after the last one and I know it's pretty soon but I checked the messages that Carla had been sending to me, and I found out that she had apparently ended things with Jerry. They had a discussion recently, and she found out that for him, things had been purely physical and all the promises that he had made to her were all things that he just said, for the sake of it. She's obviously very disappointed about it, because she, unlike him, but serious about them, had actually started falling for him. She told me that she was very sorry about everything that you had put me through and that to make up for it, she was not going to be contesting the divorce or even trying to get anything as settlement or alimony, because she knew that she didn't deserve it. So that's one problem solved, at least I won't have to go through some long-drawn process and fight for myself. I didn't reply to it because I didn't know what to say. It's sad, but she kind of had it coming. What was she even thinking, getting involved with a married man with a child? Especially when she was getting married herself, it was quite stupid of her. But it all worked out well for me, so I don't have any complaints. I'm honestly glad that I checked out those messages because this just means that I'll have to work a lot harder on the divorce than I thought I would have to. I forwarded all those texts to my lawyer and even saved them as screenshots, in case I need them later. Update 5, hey, so it's been a couple of months since I posted here but I have been really busy. The divorce and everything took a lot less time once the waiting period was over and in our state, we only have to wait for 90 days. So once that was over, it was a relatively straightforward process, and Carla only got to keep things that she had bought for herself, while got everything else. I got the house, so I moved back in. She got her car, and since we hadn't been married for a long time, our finances were separate anyway, so there was nothing to do with that. Jerry and Tina are in the middle of their divorce and the custody is getting pretty nasty, from what I heard. It's sad for my nephew, but Tina has told me that I'm allowed to see him. That's a huge victory for me because I really like the little kid and I hope to have one of my own someday and definitely will but probably not with Carla. Anyway, I'm trying to get my life back on track and so far, it's going well. I just hope it continues to go well afterward as well.